If you've got kids, or if you're even thinking about starting a family, there's a good chance you felt this quiet pressure. It's that sinking feeling that your city just doesn't want you anymore. You scroll through listings and all you see are one-bedroom condos, micro units, $3+ million Victorians, and maybe you're lucky enough to see a 2-bedroom walk-up. But good luck finding something with enough space, affordability, and the ability to build real equity in the city you love. And yet, politicians act surprised when young families leave our big cities like Toronto and Vancouver. So today we're breaking that silence with data, because economist Mike Moffatt and his team at the Missing Middle Initiative recently released one of the clearest breakdowns of why cities are losing families and what it would take to actually fix that. Now, this report, from a media standpoint, kind of flew under the radar. So let's walk through this together. Hopefully you can see it on my screen right now. It's titled, "No 3-Bedroom Homes, No Kids, No Future, Why Families Are Leaving Cities." Okay, so here's the core idea. Cities are stuck in what Moffatt calls, and I'm going to highlight it right here on the screen, unit is a unit thinking. That means that we treat studio apartments the same as 3-bedroom homes in housing policy. But families don't just need a roof over their heads. They need space. They need room to grow. This graphic says it all. In places like Toronto and Ottawa, the population of kids under 5 is shrinking. Meanwhile, nearby areas that added 3-bedroom homes like Oxford County saw kid populations grow dramatically. Now, let me head over to this next interesting stat from this table right here when they're correlating babies to housing. So that 0.68 correlation, I mean, it might not mean much if you skipped stats class, but let me put it simply. The more family-sized ownership homes a community builds, the more likely it is that young families show up and stay and plant roots in that community. Now, there's another part of this report that really stood out again, and it comes to rentals and why rentals alone won't cut it. So, here's where it gets messy. Even when cities do add 3-bedroom homes, a lot of them get bought up by investors and they get flipped into rentals. And the data shows, in this table right here, a negative correlation between the growth of those 3-bed rentals and the growth of young families. So let's think about this. The very housing stock that could have supported families is being repurposed for investment returns. And in some cases, and those of you who do rentals here in the city, you're rented to groups like students or international students or roommates. Now, this isn't anti-immigrant and it's not anti-renter. I mean, everyone deserves places to live, but it's a red flag that we've built a housing system that displaces families instead of welcoming them. And so at the end of this report, Moffatt doesn't mince words here. Families aren't just looking for space, they're looking for stability. And in our current system, that usually means ownership. But here's the issue. We treat ownership as a luxury instead of a baseline for family build. We could reframe this. So not all ownership has to mean detached homes on 40-foot lots. And we're starting to see a few alternatives, but it's not enough. Okay, so let me get into some of those alternatives and let me show you a few glimmers of hope. So projects like Lambton Mills and Reunion Crossing, both in under the radar neighborhoods, are finally starting to put families back into the blueprint. So let's look at these two projects. These aren't just condos with an extra den. These are real family-sized homes in walkable areas on transit with schools, parks, and community infrastructure I mean, all of that's already in place. And because the pre-con market is so soft right now, and that is a massive understatement, developers are actually willing to make deals, which is something we haven't said in probably 20 years here in Toronto. So if you're a family looking to buy, this might be your window. So don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested in getting more information about these projects, or if you want information on more projects like these. So my contact info is in the description down below, or you can book a phone call with me via Calendly. Okay, now let's get back to this. Some of you might have seen my last video about multiplex zoning changes in Toronto. It's where I talk about how much this policy is needed, but it's not all roses. So multiplex zoning was a step, but it's not enough. We need to stop thinking of 3-bed ownership as a niche and start treating it as the standard. Because the same way we think about schools, parks, and hospitals as infrastructure, we have to start looking at 3 and 4 bedroom homes in the same way. Now, how do we achieve that? It means that we have to start thinking about incentives, and not just for developers, but for buyers too. And it can't always be tied to a price point. Sometimes it has to be tied to build form. So incentive on homes that are 3 and 4 bedrooms. But we can still also look at those financial incentives, whether it be shared equity programs or down payment assistance, or zoning that actually makes mid-density family homes that are owned and not rented as viable. So if you're watching this and you're feeling stuck, like you've been priced out of the city or forced into decisions that don't reflect your values, I hear you. But there are options. You just need the right map. And if we want to build cities where families can stay, grow, and pass something on, then we need to stop pretending this is someone else's problem. We have to get loud about the solutions and support the rare projects actually doing it right. So check the link in my description for my contact info, and email me if you want the list of, I have an entire list of family-sized units under $1 million or projects pre-construction that are offering what families need. 2 and 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom units. Oh, and before we end this, a major shout out to Mike Moffatt and the Missing Middle Initiative. This kind of data-driven advocacy is exactly what we need to turn insight into action. Oh, and I said that was before we ended, but I have one more last thing. If your kids aren't in diapers anymore, don't worry. Because, a lot of the content that's made online is for young families or people just starting their families. However, the next video that hits this channel might be for some of you who have those preteens, teens, and young adults. So we're going to shift gears into what families with teens and young adults should be thinking about when it comes to housing. So we're talking about high school catchments, transit access, and not just for the parents, but for the teens, parks that don't feel like playgrounds, and neighborhoods where your 15-year-old can still safely get home from rehearsal, work, or practice. So that video is coming next. And if you want to raise teenagers in the city or planning to, hit subscribe and keep it locked in, because that should probably drop in the next 7 to 10 days. Oh, and remember, in real estate as in life, the next best thing might be where you least expect it. So this has been Josh for Under the Radar Real Estate. Thanks for watching. Peace out.